Hi, welcome back. This is Pop Goes the Stack, where emerging tech trends go to get unpacked, interrogated, and occasionally roasted. I'm your host, Lori MacVittie, who is still waiting for an AI that understands sarcasm.
Oh, that would be great.
Still waiting, still waiting. Today on Pop Goes the Stack, we are talking about automation and the fact that it's got choices today. For years, automation meant workflows. Still kind of does, right? It's still workflows. They just might be more dynamic, chaotic than we'd like. And there's some tools coming out that are really good at helping to build these kinds of automations. Things like, FlowFuse, built on Node-RED. Joel's a fan. And N8N, which is built on something Kubernetes, obviously, because there's an 8 in the name, right? That's what it tells me. It's some kind of thing. Anyway, on the other side is, agents actually making the decisions, building the workflows in real time and doing things. So you've got two choices. Today, we wanted to talk about the low-code automation with teeth, I'm told. To do that, we've got Joel Moses, as usual. Joel.
Hello, Lori. Good to be here.
Awesome. And we brought Aubrey King in because he's a fan of N8N.
Big time.
And because he's used it. So we've got some experience here. Joel's looked into, all of these. He's got good perspectives too. And we wanted to discuss what they are briefly, and then pros, cons, when they're appropriate, when you should keep humans in the loop, which fork to take.
Definitely.
Always like, okay, we're done. Thanks, everyone.
Right. Well, let me point out really quickly that the reason that Aubrey and I are talking about FlowFuse, which is a commercialized version of Node-RED, which is an open source project, and N8N is that both are essentially open source projects with communities around them, and so. But I want to be very clear about this. They're actually just big packages of Node.js code that is glue logic that helps you craft workflows using a visual editor. So from that perspective, they're sort of kissing cousins. Node-RED hews towards the IoT side of the fence, and N8N goes towards kind of the IT automation side of the fence. But they're effectively two sides of the same coin. They're low code. We used to call these things no code.
Yeah.
And then people realized, oh, there's always a little bit of code.
There's actually code.
A little bit.
No such thing as no code.
Yeah. So what do you like about N8N, Aubrey?
I'm not allowed to say everything, am I? I can't.
No,
actually,
you can say it. You'll be wrong, but you can say it.
There are things actually that I don't like about it, but I will kind of get into it a little bit. It makes getting started easy. So for me, what I mean by that is, for me, I had a hard time understanding how maybe AI applications, especially, how they would actually talk to each other within the confines of an infrastructure. And I found that N8N is very, very easy to kind of put together a flow, right? We talked about flows. So you can put together a flow in 5 minutes that's working and functional, calls maybe if you have like a machine that's running Olama somewhere else in your network, or if you have let's say an OpenAI subscription that you're going to plug in and use with your N8N also, you can very easily use some kind of networking tools like the three of us and anyone probably watching this are used to actually, take SSL off and take a look at the messages that are being passed back and forth. What do we have in plain text once that happens? All that kind of good stuff that most people who have been living the F5 life for a long time are going to be thinking about. So for me, real easy to get going. That's probably the number one thing I like about N8N.
Why do I smell hard-coded credentials somewhere in there? You mentioned, hey, it can take a key, and I'm like, where does it store that? I mean,
it's hashed.
That's an excellent point, Lori.
That's hashed.
And again, part of the risk of these low-code tools is that there are certain things that they do to make things easier. They give you convenience, and convenience is kind of an interesting thing. Convenience is, however, a loan. You pay back that loan using architecture and design and process. And that's where these tools actually fall short. We'll get to that in a second. So I need to cover the FlowFuse side of the coin here. So so FlowFuse is a commercial offer that's built on the top of Node-RED, and FlowFuse is essentially a package of tools that provides scalability for the Node-RED instances. Node-RED is essentially just kind of a workflow runner that really doesn't have any idea about scaling or enterprise readiness. And so this is a package that fits on top of that. Node-RED, of course, has a long history. It's a project that came out of IBM and specifically for IoT workloads. And it's got a tremendous number of plugins and add-ons and things that you can decorate with, which is kind of why I like it. It's an extra large grab bag of routines. So if I need to do something with a particular type of technology, or I need to speak a particular type of protocol, it's there. I can prototype with it. Now, my use of it is not necessarily to productionize things. My use of it is to experiment to see if certain things can be glued together in certain ways. And for that, it's awesome. But again, it's a package of Node.js, just like N8N is. And it helps you visually construct and create a workflow that works and you can test things with. And then once you've got all that down, you got to move it into production somehow. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And that's where these systems kind of cease utility.
That production thing is really what kind of got me about N8N, to be honest. As my massive scale brain started working, right? Because most of my operations career was all in service provider. Most of my SE time was all in service provider as well. So when I start thinking about service provider networks and trying to scale N8N to that, I have a really hard time understanding that, especially since N8N doesn't have even though the name would indicate otherwise, it doesn't really play nice with Kubernetes just yet. Docker, 100%. Docker all day, but I have not seen any sort of easy to Kubernetify.
Nice word. I like.
It's not a word.
That's
not a word.
It's got.
It is now
somewhere.
It's not.
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the risks here is that these things by default are meant for. Let's talk about its intersection with AI and AI assistance. So a lot of these tools, FlowFuse is one of them. They have an AI assistant that allows you to describe what routine you want built, and it will build it for you. Now, the output of N8N and the output of FlowFuse AI assistance is they show you a visual representation of the workflow. And the reason they show you a visual representation is these tools are primarily targeted to people who don't have any knowledge of actual computer languages. Yeah. So they need to see a visual representation, and it produces what effectively is like a visiograph of the routine. That's fantastic. The trouble is it forgets a lot of the stuff that programming languages and language runtimes are good at, which is debugging, observability, logging. So the routine is very visual. It shows you exactly what's going to happen, but it won't show you what happens if something fails. That is left to the person to develop that. And these are not targeted to developers. And that's where things go wrong.
It's still running code underneath, no matter how it's represented. I mean, we've had these kind of tools forever. If you go back to things like business process automation, they had these beautiful Java frameworks and servers, and it was real. I used them. They were horrible, but you could do the mapping thing, and it was, right, you could map the flow, you could visually do it. You just had to drag and drop it yourself. Now the AI will do it for you, but there's still code underneath that needs, as you pointed out, it needs to be debugged, it needs to be secured, it needs to be, have logging, all sorts of things that don't sound like they're included.
That's absolutely true. I need to be very clear here. FlowFuse and N8N are open source variants with commercial offers. There are actual commercial offers for low code systems like Zapier and IFTTT and Airtable and Zoho, and there's a ton of things in this particular space that are intended for production use in production environments. Now, I once saw a low-code platform demo, and I'm not going to name names as to what the platform was, where someone built an order-to-invoice pipeline in 6 minutes. Everybody was applause, standing ovation. There were tears. People were passing out in the aisles. And then someone asked a really key question. Well, our ERP systems times out sometimes. What happens when that happens? And it was like the presenter was a deer in headlights, did not know how to answer that one. And that's when I realized that low-code demos are essentially cooking shows where everything is pre-chopped, everything is preheated, the mess is already cleaned up, but in practical sense, lots of other stuff can happen in the kitchen, and that's not represented. And that's the problem with these systems. These systems don't necessarily incorporate what happens if things go wrong.
It's
But the
funny.
concept is good. I mean, it's
Yeah.
necessary because there are those two approaches, right? One view of automation in enterprise settings is going to be you're going to build a workflow and it may use AI in different ways or even make calls out to AI to do things, but it is going to drive the automation so that you keep control. And the
Yeah.
other way is here, agent, just here's some tools, do this thing, and now it's going to go try and do it on its own. And so these tools are leading toward that first option where some control, benefits of AI, but you still have the control. And the other one is let's see what happens.
Yeah.
It's interesting, the timeliness of this conversation, or this piece of it anyways, because right before coming to record with you guys, I was working on a flow that is broken. And yeah, and here's the problem, like where do you go?
Yeah.
So and that's a funny thing for me to say because I work for our community resource, right, which is where these problems should be sort of nipped. But my experience with N8N, and I don't know how this would work with FlowFuse. I suspect it would be a support call. But with N8N, I put in a git issue, and that git issue, they took a look at it and triaged it to configuration. This is not an error. It's a configuration problem. Go to the support, the community support.
Right.
So I go to community support. I put exactly the same thing in, right? Community comes back and they look at this and they go, yeah, no, this looks like looks like a problem with the coding of the node. This does not look like a configuration issue. Okay, great. So I go back to get issues and I say, hey, this is what community gave me. It's definitely a problem in the node. And they come back with, no, we used a different model and it's a model problem. So that's the problem. So go back to community and
ping pong, ping pong. Yeah.
So nothing's
But-
changed. For
Yeah,
the
well,
for the
again-
diffuser, it's the same thing back at
We'll realize that these platforms are designed to empower non-technical users, right? And so the community is built up of a predominantly large set of non-technical users who actually don't delve too deeply into how the actual logic works. And so, a platform will empower non-technical users for about 3 weeks, and then IT gets a ticket that says, workflow broken, node says it doesn't run, don't know why, please fix ASAP, it's mission critical. And then you have to go hunt in the community for exactly why that would be the case. And that's when you find out that your automation pipeline isn't a helpful coworker, it's more like a badly behaving emotional support animal.
But
Ooh.
the logs conversation is incredible too, because really the error that I got, ready for it, right? Unauthorized.
Oh, I love those errors. Yeah.
That's it. Unauthorized. Nothing
Okay.
else. Nothing.
Yeah.
What's
yeah.
unauthorized?
Yeah, exactly.
Why?
Yeah. Now these
Well,
load
the credentials weren't
know.
hard coded. It was the hash. The hash was wrong. Aubrey.
Didn't even get that far. There's no credentials.
Yeah. Now we're going to leave scaling aside for a second, but one of the problems with these systems is that effectively, in order to really deepen their functionality, they are extensible in nature, meaning you can actually put little segments of code in some of these nodes to modify the behavior of the nodes. Now, the problem is that these systems want to put you on rails, and every time you modify the default configuration of a node, you get off the rails. And being able to extend things with custom code sounds empowering until you realize what that actually means, which is that you've written this thing, you've deployed it through a visual editor, it fails, and all it says is unauthorized or node failed. And congratulations, you just invented a new way to be on call. So that's a big problem with these systems. Again, one of the things that if a company is going to invest in things like Zapier or N8N or FlowFuse, that you've got to have is you have to have some sort of oversight and some form of standards to move workflows into production, ensuring that they actually have the right things to be run scalably and to have them be able to be troubleshot. And I don't see that a lot.
Uh, Upgrades sound like a nightmare to me. Upgrade, rollback, upgrade.
Yeah.
Like, unless it's all done in containers, then
Right.
obviously
So
that's
what I'm hearing is these things are great for some workflows, but maybe not production level IT enterprise type flows, right? They already have scripts, right? I mean, we've been tracking the status of automation in IT for years in our research every year, and it's pretty high. Most
Yeah.
people are either using a script that is automatically executed or that they type in and kick off, but it's a script that already has that flow.
Yeah.
So the move to AI is more, hey, AI, here are the possible scripts you can use, do this thing, and let it go do that work, right? I mean, that seems
Yeah.
like the natural evolution rather than, hey, here's this tool, build this visual thing, and maybe it'll work. I mean,
Well, my attitude about these systems is you can actually put these things in production, but if you have some but it's good to have a non-technical user who can design a workflow to get it to work. But if that is the end of the process, you haven't done what's necessary to make it work properly. Right? Just getting it to work is one bar. The other bar that you have to leap over is to get it to work scalably and reliably in a production environment. And so what I would propose is that if people are intent on using these low-code tools in production, start with a non-technical user who defines and lays out how the workflow should work, get it prototyped, and then hand it over to an actual developer who can then look at the workflow, decorate it with things that help you with troubleshooting, with the log statements in the right place, get it to production quality. And that's where I don't see a lot of people spending a lot of time on these systems.
I would love to push back on the idea of non-technical people writing workflows, which are basically codifying processes in environments that they don't understand. I would love to have this discussion, but we're starting to run out of time, man.
I know. It's that deficit between people who understand the use case and the people who understand the systems. That's the problem here. The non-technical user knows how they use things. They know the flow. They just don't know why the flow has to work certain ways, and that's where the developer comes in.
So prototype, using these kind of tools, very useful.
oh yeah.
Remember VB back in the day, right? It was great. Visual Basic was great for letting non-technical people build out user interfaces and describe flows for prototyping. Excellent use case. And then someone would actually take that and turn that into a production grade thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aubrey, good idea?
Yeah.
Oh,
You know,
uh-oh.
You're talking to him
Can of
after he's been
worms.
troubleshooting one of these systems
That-
recently.
yeah.
Can of
so-
worms.
that's the problem. I mean, coming from a troubleshooting session direct into asking me about that is tough. I like the idea of these really more to get an idea of what code you should make for production. So like, let me give you an example. There are, as I go through, we talk about low code, right? So as I have gone through creating this flow that I've had for a while, I've had to go through it and do it a couple of different ways. I ended up having to do it non-deterministically, where I actually just broke out the JavaScript and started writing, just to make sure that the non-deterministic flow worked. And when it did, then I could go back to that the deterministic flow worked. Then I could go back to a non-deterministic pathway and continue that. But those little bits of JavaScript, those little bits of JSON that you end up dealing with while you're working these flows are, I think, the gems that you pull out of an N8N and put into, a production grade Linux system or something like that. I really do. It's great to get started, but I don't at this point, I don't think this is ready for prime time. I wouldn't put it in my production environment.
Okay, that sounds like your takeaway.
That's,
Uh,
it's not there yet.
okay, all right, Joel.
Well,
Anything you
my
wanna?
my takeaway is actually the inverse of that. I think they are ready for production, provided you give them enough care and feeding from a developer who knows how to decorate it with things that are production grade. And the reason I think that is, first of all, it's great to have a non-technical user who can define a workflow because they know where the data elements are that they're interested in. They know the systems that they work with. They know the flow that they use. I'll give you an example. An accountant knows how to navigate the ERP system and go to various pages and craft a manual workflow. And what they're trying to do is visually represent a manual workflow. That's incredibly valuable to a developer. A developer would have to figure all that stuff out on their own by studying the user's behavior. If you put these in the hands of a non-technical user, the user can model it for them. And that gets you to production faster, but it doesn't get you to production right after the non-technical user produces it. That's my point.
Oh,
A little bit of time.
wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, as we close it, I guess my takeaway is probably not ready yet. You still have paths to go. If your scripts are working, maybe don't rip them out just yet. Yeah, that's what I'm going with.
Fair.
So that's a wrap for Pop Goes the Stack. If you enjoyed today's interrogation, smash subscribe, then try emailing an AI some sarcasm. You'll get why it's needed. We'll be back to grill the next shiny thing soon.